This guy is responsible for the third biggest scam in human history. And what did he do and how did he pull it off? His name is Emmanuel Nwude, and Emmanuel was a director at Union Bank in the 90s. Emmanuel was a very intelligent guy and very ambitious, so he planned a massive scam in 3 steps. First, it was to find a perfect victim. Secondly, he would convince the victim of a very perfect investment. Thirdly, he will channel this investment and claim the money and launder it so that it will be untraceable. So Emmanuel got to work and created a group. In his group, he had some accomplices, which included a couple called Ikechukwu and Amaka Anajemba. He also included a man called Tafida Williams. And voila, this was a real-life money heist, except there were no masks and no weapons. One day in London, a group of executives will do a meeting, and in the meeting, the CBN governor at the time, Paul Oguma, will be present there, and also the Minister of Aviation will be present there. So these two guys convinced a Brazilian investor to invest in an airport that was about to be built in Abuja, Nigeria. See, Abuja was the capital city and it had a promising economy, so this was a lucrative business for foreign investors to put their money in. So with good documentation to back up their investment, the CBN governor and the Minister of Aviation will convince this Brazilian executive about this lucrative deal, about an airport that was about to be built in the capital city of Nigeria, Abuja, and this airport was going to yield great profits when it's been done. Apparently, after the meeting, the Brazilian executive was so happy about its investment, especially the fact that it was promised a $10 million commission from this investment. All he needed to do was take money from his bank and invest in this airport built in Nigeria, and voila, cash flow. Money will start coming in. After the meeting, everyone was happy, but something was wrong. You see, in that meeting, the CBN governor was not the CBN governor. Paul Oguma was not at that meeting, but Emmanuel Nwude. And the Minister of Aviation that was in the meeting was Tafida Williams, one of the accomplices of Emmanuel Nwude, disguising as the Minister of Aviation for that meeting. So it was all a sham, and the victim was Nelson Sakaguchi. So the plan was already in motion, and Nelson Sakaguchi was convinced that he had a very good investment opportunity. So what did he do? So he transferred money from the bank he was directing at the time, Banco Neurost in Sao Paulo, Brazil. He transferred the money to a different branch in the Cayman Islands, and from there he was sending money down to Nigeria to the fake CBN governor, who was really Emmanuel Nwude. So from 1995 to 1998, money was being transferred year after year. Each money that was being transferred was bigger than the other. So over the years, it summed up to $190 million that was being transferred from the Cayman Islands Bank by Nelson Sakaguchi down to Nigeria in the accounts of Emmanuel Nwude. Imagine, $190 million. Wow. So how was this massive scam later discovered? In 1998, a financial firm called Banco Santander wanted to buy the bank Banco Neurost. So in an attempt to buy the bank, they discovered that some part of the money was lying down in the branch in Cayman Islands, and it was a very huge sum of money. So they asked questions, and they asked Nelson Sakaguchi about the money that was lying down in that Cayman Islands, and he said that they were using that money to trade, and apparently some banking trades were failing. So this didn't add up, and after so much investigation, it was discovered that this money was being sent out of the bank down to Nigeria for an investment to which they didn't know. The whole thing resulted to Nelson Sakaguchi being suspended from the bank. After he was suspended, the families that owned the Banco Neurost of Brazil had to remit that amount of money, the $190 million taken out of it. They had to remit it and pay back that money down to Banco Santander, the financial firm that got the bank. Nelson Sakaguchi was suspended from this bank, and funny enough, he was still being pressed by the Nigerian scammers to bring more money for the investment. Nelson Sakaguchi had not discovered that this was a sham yet, and still sent down about $1 million to Nigeria after he was suspended from this bank, Banco Neurost. Imagine. So the total money that was scammed from Nelson Sakaguchi summed up to $242 million. Wow. Now you see how big that money was. So it's clear that this case was so high profile that multinational financial services had to come together. Brazil, Nigeria, Switzerland, Britain and United States had to come together to figure out the whole thing and trace the whole amount that was being scammed off that bank. This was later traced down to Emmanuel Nwude and his accomplices, and because of this case, the EFCC had to be formed and they arrested Emmanuel Nwude. And in 2005, after he was tried, he was given 25 years in prison. Apparently, his accomplices were also given their own jail term to serve, including Amaka and Ajimba, who was the one that ratted him out. Apparently, her husband had been unalived long before this arrest was made. This story doesn't end here. After Emmanuel was convicted and he was sent to jail in 2005, he was later released on a plea deal in 2006. After he was released on a plea deal in 2006, he made a legal request to collect some of his assets on the basis that he had those assets before the whole scam and before everything happened, and he was able to recover $52 million worth of his assets back. He was later rearrested in 2016 involving a case of unaliving and a land dispute. Now can you imagine that?